Thanks. All right, we call the meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. Thanks for everyone's flexibility this month and shifting the meeting. Appreciate it. Appreciate that. First thing is review and approval of minutes from our March 12th meeting. I sent those out this afternoon. I don't know if everybody's had a chance of reviewing those. Joe.
The only thing I caught was a typo. Matt will with regarding meeting with Jason about the data that Civic Plus was sharing.
Got it. Okay. Let me make
the rest of it matched my notes.
Okay. Any other comments or motions to correct?
On the second to last bullet, it says next steps / meeting schedule. It just says the 23rd at 6:30. I don't know if we want to be precise and say April 23rd at 6:30.
Yes. Yes. Add next meeting. Okay. Looks like, yeah, sure, he's running about 10 minutes late, so he'll join us later. Any other motions to correct? Okay. Joe, are you about to say something?
I was just going to say I'll move to accept with the amendments.
Okay. Great. Motion by Joe to accept with the removing the amendment with and adding April next meeting month. And Angela seconded. Great. And so let's go around the room. Orla.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Angela.
Aye.
And likewise, aye. Okay. I'm taking notes here for our next meeting. Thank you so much. All right. Close that window and get to this. Okay. So I've been informed that one of the reasons why we haven't had a participation from the schools is because the school's IT manager is no longer with the schools, and they are looking to hire, I guess, or fill the position. Basically, Mr. Stivers had a discussion with Mr. Martineau, superintendent, and they will definitely be keen to fill the position. As soon as they fill the position, push the next school's IT manager for MTC participation. So basically, I'm going to just add this same line: schools not in attendance for a bunch of these agenda items, which is unfortunate, but until they have a new IT manager and we have participation, we're not going to make any progress on those items. So as such, I'll skip past the schools items.
Did they say how long that's been since he hasn't been there?
They didn't say. Sam heard that the position is now vacant, but as of a month ago, our emails to him were bouncing. And I reached out to some other person I know in schools who works in IT, and he simply referred me to the superintendent. He said he could not comment on what was going on. So yeah.
The last time I had a meeting with him, I want to say it was February. Check my calendar.
Yeah. All right. Let me pull up our latest feedback on the website and walk through any new feedback. I think I increased the percentage of um, uh, pop-ups to like 5 or 10%. And let's go through. Okay, so it's basically all the responses so far. Oh, let me share my screen. So far we have 8 responses, and the feedback is a star rating, and we're averaging at 4.8.
Nice.
And nobody reported a problem. So there's nothing
Great.
actionable.
But they
There's
gave it a
no,
4. Someone gave it a
they gave it a 4. 2 people, 6 people gave it 100% and or 5, and then 2 people gave it a 4, but they didn't give us any feedback, which is unfortunate.
Do we share this rating on the actual website? Or is that something we'd consider?
We don't currently. We could, but the question is, what's the typically businesses I think would share a rating saying, hey, we're 4.8 stars. I don't know what utility it'd be for us as a town. I don't know how good would be at attracting residents or businesses based on the website rating. I think it'd be useful. It's definitely useful for sharing with like overall, select boards. I hear how we do on our web properties, but what are your thoughts, Orla? Is this something
No,
the
and
utility?
one of the reasons, well, more just to say for the folks that have provided feedback, this is the rating, and it might trigger others to provide feedback, whether they agree or in particular if they disagree with the rating. And actually, one of the reasons I thought of it is because I'm on the Southborough Community Share Facebook group, which I look at every now and then. And there was a whole load of feedback recently about the town website specific to the DPW, which I am assigned to. So I need to go back and look at it because it wasn't positive feedback. And I thought, oh, that's interesting because people were sharing the feedback in that forum. But I don't know that any of that's ever made it back to official channels or directly to the DPW.
Yeah, it hasn't. And so this is where I would love it if you could encourage people to come to the website and click on the give feedback. This is
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I can go into that forum and even do that.
and we're soliciting it. We love feedback, but it should be through the proper
Yeah,
channels. And I have a great appreciation for my Southborough. I have a great appreciation for lots of Facebook groups, etc. But it's
it's not
much.
always helpful.
It's not as helpful, and I mean, it shouldn't be on the town to go scavenging around different non-town
No, I
places for
totally
feedback.
agree.
It'd be better to say, look, just we love, appreciate feedback. Just come and do it through the links.
Yeah,
And this is where, MPC, we would, especially for technology, we would review this, we would triage it, and then we'd work with Jay to either implement it or update if there's something significantly actionable. Yeah,
perfect. Yeah, no, I'll go back and find that feed and share the
great.
link.
Were we ever able to get any additional web metrics like, users per month? And can we see if it's increasing or duration that they stay on the site and anything like that?
Yes, our Google Analytics has some of that. I need to sit down again with Jay to review that. I'm not strongly encouraged about what Google Analytics can provide, and especially since the only way to get access to Google Analytics is through a couple of named Google accounts that are not under our control, but Jay has access to. Um, I think for next year, I think we definitely should be looking into um, uh, a comprehensive web journey analytics system that can track cross property. I think that's what's key, uh, given that we have so many different web properties and be able to track and trace users across those, um, and basically get a
I
paid
thought as
analytics service.
part of the package that they, gave us in the proposal, they were supposed to do at least a few standard reports that were more out of the box that they gave us on a monthly basis.
They do, and
They
Jay
do.
has access to Google Analytics, and they basically have for every page on the main town website, the .gov, we can take a look, and Jay can
Oh, okay.
pull up in any time. It's
Okay.
not just a monthly thing. Um, um, yeah, basically, and I think we're dealing with like something like 8,000 visits a month, something like that, page views. I can't remember what we at, Jay.
Just trying to see if I can get in, take a peek real quick.
But it's only for the main web property, the main town website. It's not covering like the library, the senior center, the rec, or others. This is where, in the absence, I think the ultimate dream would be to have everything under a single domain and a single website. But the likelihood of that happening anytime soon are low. Because the library likes their own flexibility, senior center likes their flexibility, rec center loves my rec, you know. And so in the absence of having unified web properties, the best, let's taking baby steps towards that is let's start at least collecting analytics across the different sites. Um, yeah. And just take some notes. So no new actionable feedback and web veteran analysis. Um, I'll just say Matt J will to continue review of the numbers, the analytics. Okay. So yeah, Jay, if you come up with that during the meeting, that's fine.
Yeah.
But let's go on. Um, Auto failover to secondary ISP, has that been tested?
Planning for, I was trying to get them last week to get it done, but next week is when we're gonna do it. I was
Okay.
having issues licensing for the firewall. Um, so that was I was running into a little bit of an issue with that, with the secondary firewall. So I had to push
Okay.
it out. So that should be done by next week.
Awesome. That is really exciting. Okay. Wi-Fi proposals for town properties.
Okay, so um, I've gotten I went over the entire Wi-Fi study. Pretty much pointed out, like I said the last time we met, exactly what I thought it would. It's I know the areas that are blacked out, a lot of DPW. The art center is very minimal coverage. Um, Even at the townhouse, we have like one access point for the entire building. So we definitely have a lot of areas that are just, you know, I was joking about it today with the other guys because we have like an AP, and I think I've told you guys this before, a DPW. It's literally sitting on top of a metal shelf between another metal shelf. That's just doing nothing for
Could you encase it with like aluminum foil to make sure
it.
it's
I was
no?
going with that. Be a good idea right now. So, but no, I've reached, I've had the conversations now with Xerox, and they've presented me with three different options. One of them being the Meraki setup, another one being an Aruba setup, and the third one just adding to my Fortinet firewall with the APs. So I would need like 18 additional access points. And with needing those 18 additional access points, the current access points in a year are going to become end of life. So then I would have to replace those other devices that we currently have in place with newer devices so that they could be supported on a newer platform. And then my firewall is coming up as well, where it's going to become end of life in I think a year or so. So that it ends up becoming, if not more, than the price with just going with them. As of right now, my decision is to go with the Meraki setup. I'll show you what some of the prices are. I don't know if that is that a big deal to show that online. If there's any issues with showing pricing? I don't think so, but I'm just not sure with rules and regulations when it comes to that. But I can at
Yeah,
least
yeah,
If it's
I
a
said,
confidential quote, I don't know if we should share it
yeah, probably
online
shouldn't.
if they gave you the
Yeah,
prices directly without approval to share them.
yeah,
yeah,
and plus, I know they definitely did some really good pricing for me. I was looking at some of the prices for the access points, and they definitely, I mean, if not in some of the situations, like half the price of what an access point would be from Meraki. And so they definitely did a really good job with pricing. Um, if I do everything, and what I'm planning to do as well is we have some switches that need to be replaced that are not going to be enough power for the current setup. So I'd like to add some switches in there to replace them as well into this whole um, into this entire project. So we just do it all at the same time type of thing. Um, but even without that, we're talking about 45, close to 50. So it gives us plenty of funds to, get those new switches that we need, put them in there at the same time. Still keeping it under budget than what we, with the original amount that we had, which I believe at this point is like 199. After doing the study, we did, we also did the room over at public safety. Um, so at the end of the day, we'll still be able to give back money to the town and still get everything done with a cloud solution in place with Meraki, all new setup, 3-year support in place. So I'll just have to budget every 3 years to put that in place every 3 years, which is it's good because it's just out of mind, out of sight type of thing with Meraki and their support. Um, and they, obviously they're going to use the entire layouts that I provided them to do the study, and they'll just import that into the Meraki setup. Um, one reason as well is to kind of get your feedback on what I'm thinking doing, and I'm also going to be presenting this to the select board. So obviously, I would like to have your support on this as well. Um, but just whatever open discussion we want to talk about. What are your pros, your cons? What do you think is I'm not too keen on the Aruba setup. Um, and I'm definitely not big on having to, update all this stuff again in 2 years with my other access points and FortiGate. And it also gives me that single point of failure with my firewall as well. So,
Can you just clarify, Jay, the difference between the one that you're recommending, the Meraki setup, with the initial one? It sounded like you were saying that most of the access points and the main infrastructure would all need to be replaced. How is the Meraki different from that?
so with Meraki, it's going to be all brand new APs.
I'm losing your audio just a little
Okay.
bit as you talk.
Can you hear me okay right now?
I think, yeah, I think that's okay.
Sorry about that. So Meraki is going to be a complete brand new install. So it's all new access points, and obviously it's communicating over the cloud. So it's going to be, obviously going through my firewall out to the Meraki cloud for communication. With the FortiGate, I would need to install 18 new access points, and in about a year or so would have to replace the other 33 or 34 that I have currently installed because they're going to be end of life, no longer supported. I won't be able to update them with the firewall. And then also, as I said, my firewall is coming up as well with end of life for I think it's another year or two away from being EOL as well. So at the end of the day, that project would end up costing me another 40K in another year or two on top of the initial, I think it was 20K or something like that they were quoting me for getting the APs I needed and getting them installed and doing the wiring and all of that. for the new spots and new drops. Also, just so you know, that Meraki price I'm giving you is including doing the drops for the additional 18 spots as well. So, like I
So
said,
we save money with the Meraki approach and we still get everything upgraded.
yeah, exactly.
No.
Joe, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, it sounds like a good deal. I'm a big fan of decoupling from the firewall infrastructure because we've had a topology that things have been tightly coupled for quite a while across several dimensions. So it's good to see that decoupled. Um, for our size and scale, a sort of all-in-one. At day job, I don't like vendor lock-in, but this is a situation for the town that I think it's very appropriate. I just would ask, do we have a sense of what their rolling support window is, since we're talking about hardware and software, AOL and support? Would we be looking at like 3 to 5 year lifespan on these boxes? Or are they not committing? Do we have history of what Meraki's what their historical lifespan for some of this gear is?
Honestly, I do not have the lifespan on these, but I can definitely talk about that in my next meeting because we have a lot of fine tuning to do with this project. I would assume it's going to be the typical 5 process, but also with the support. If a Meraki switch does, if a Meraki access point does break, it's part of the support that they'll replace them as well. So if one goes down, they automatically just start sending one out in that support for me. And obviously, because they can see it's down on their end as well, ticket gets generated automatically and the product gets sent out to me to get replaced. Again, and I say 5 years, but that's just the typical lifespan for most hardware. Whether that's the case for this, if anybody else has anything to add to that, I'd say that's kind of what my basis on knowledge with the access point would be.
Does the quote include, from your understanding, does it include the annual software? Because my understanding there is with Meraki, there's an annual subscription. And do we prepay that up front? Is
Yep.
it basically included? Okay.
Yep, that's included the subscription, license, access points, 3-year license validation period. I'm just looking at the quote that I have here. But yeah, that's all part of that with the controller as well, so I can access the controller anywhere to look at anything that's within network. So, yep.
Okay.
And
Here's a question. Here's a question for Joe. Actually, I'm intrigued about your interest in decoupling and in general for security. Having level diversification is good, but for small, medium businesses, for simplicity and cost, are you still an advocate of decoupling firewall tech from access point? One of the reasons I ask is, Meraki it's like, from what I've seen of it, from what I've used it seen in small businesses, it's like, in large enterprise, it's like plug and play and it just works together and, inclusive of your firewall. But yeah, what are your thoughts, Joe? If you're saying something, Joe, I don't think we can
No,
hear you.
I've been detached shortly after Jason was responded to the age
Okay.
and indicating that he'd bring it up in the meeting. I missed the start of that question.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Sure. The question is around you had mentioned, and I'm intrigued about that you're a proponent of decoupling firewall tech from access point tech. And in general, from security standpoint, it's good to decouple and diversify, but there's also a trade-off with administrability, that's the right word, and simplicity of administration. And that's one thing Meraki, one of the key Meraki sales points is that if you buy your APs, your switches, your firewalls from us, there's this all through the same GUI, same interface, and for monitoring management, there is a benefit for simplification. And for SMBs, small medium size, which is what I would declare Southborough the equivalent of small medium business, really a small business, right? um, there's some merit to that. So you love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was merely speaking again, since our role is advisory and isn't to like dictate topology or things. I was merely meaning like we had discussed a while back how there were like some commingled layer 2, layer 3, like massive dependencies on single device roles, and just that kind of decoupling is good. Whether or not you're speaking of, since we're going to be looking at EOL on one of the existing half of the Fortinet cluster, whether or not you're talking, oh well, maybe we should investigate Meraki when that comes up. That's that's a fair assessment to make at that point in time. But I think that would also have to be gauged against if we do some. How might that change our managed service contract, or how would we want to adjust it if we did uh, cloudify more of these things, where some of the elements that we're relying on the MSP for might actually be easier or abstracted. These are all points to consider. But I was merely speaking in terms of the deep coupling that exists today with the APs, VPN, firewall.
Yeah.
Even for that, this whole firewall project I just did helped me to decouple, in a sense, the firewall from being the VLAN master, in a sense here. So I now was able to move that over to switches so that I can handle that instead of counting on the firewall to do all of this stuff. So just, yeah, exactly, just getting rid of some of the things that were really dedicated to that firewall. So it's definitely been better. um, just one other point to the not even a point, just kind of like advice on this as well. I'm looking, like I said, to replace some switches that are definitely outdated. May not meet the requirements for some power for these for the access points. And kind of falling to what you were just talking about, Matt, with going to the product for their all-in-one solutions. They definitely tout a lot. Um, so Meraki obviously has switches that they're offering as well. They gave me some pricing on as well. I'm not sure if I want to go that route, because definitely it's a lot pricier than getting an Aruba switch. But then I'm like, do I keep on sticking to the Aruba switches, which I've never really personally liked myself, because as I've told you guys before, I've always been a Cisco person, so I've really, I've managed Cisco switches a lot easier. I've definitely come around the learning curve with these switches. But yeah, I just, do I just fall back to the original, Aruba 48s or 24 port switches with the PoE that I need, or really kind of lean on the Meraki? Even if I just do a few of them now, I can always upgrade more going on down the line, and then I'll just have that all-in-one setup with Meraki, which will make obviously a lot easier for managing and stuff like that. But what do you think of that?
Yeah, yeah, I like what Joe said about, or Joe pointed out, and I guess this question back to you, Jay. Um, do we currently pay on a monthly basis some amount to the MSP for helping us manage our current switches? And if we shifted over to Meraki, where Meraki is doing more of the monitoring and management and patching, uh, could that offset the higher cost of the Merakis?
Yeah, I mean, I could, because yes, they do currently monitor all my switches, the firewall, um, and they, as they have told me, a lot of my, they know that some of the switches are definitely, going to be EOL, and we need to start worrying about them and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, if we did, move it to that Meraki setup, then I would be able to remove it. If that's the way it's going to be for the subscription base with Meraki's, where they're monitoring it, patching it, supporting it, then yeah, there would be no reason for me to have the switches there. Then I could just kind of shift my focus mostly to the servers and the firewall, and security in the background as well. Um, yeah, if that's the way the setup is.
Yeah, Joe, comment,
Yeah,
question?
yeah. And to be clear, I wasn't saying that it was obvious and required and mandatory, I'd say we'd want to take a look at the contract to see what elements could be trimmed, perhaps, because we don't want to back into suddenly Jay and Jason having to be the 24/7 man again.
Yeah.
Some of that coverage is still very valuable to us.
Definitely. And again, if that's the way if that's the way Meraki supports their setup with their switches, where they're technically monitoring and patching and doing all of that. Obviously, I would have to look in detail on how that contract is with Meraki to better understand it, because I personally have never worked with Meraki. I've seen it demoed, I've watched it in many demonstrations. I've never worked with the physical, so I'm not even sure how their whole support platform is with them. So
Yeah, that's my understanding, and I'm not a limited person to know about this, but my understanding is the Meraki line is purely about sort of fully managed, cloud managed. They manage slash monitor slash patch it for you, so you don't. So small medium businesses don't have to deal with that. Joe, you have another comment?
Yeah. Just also because since Meraki got bought out by Cisco a while back, they would also be potentially pitching some of like the lower end cat switches as a possibility as well. So if you're worried about all, there's advantages of all in one, but then there's dangers in monoculture, not just in agriculture.
yeah, no, I've heard some stories already too about Meraki and Cisco. And a lot of the finger pointing, if something goes wrong, they're like, no, it's Cisco's fault. And then Cisco will be like, no, it's Meraki's fault. So they kind of do a little bit of this when things go on. I've talked to some people that have the product in their facility or their organization. I've heard a lot of very positive things about it. Some things that I didn't hear that were a little concerning that I definitely mentioned today was like, if they didn't pay their monthly subscription, like literally they would turn everything off. And I'm like, whoa, what do you mean? Like my cell phone goes off if I don't pay my bill? Like, what are you talking about? And some people will actually have a monthly, they'll actually make their payments monthly instead of doing like a 3-year term or a 1-year term, or actually where the payment then go interface and network, and they wouldn't be able to manage anything. So I mentioned that today with my rep, and he was like, that's because we're doing 3-year plans. I'll definitely have an alert to you 3 months prior before even thinking about, have the communications with them that they can make sure that nothing like that would ever happen. So that would be one thing I would be like look concerned about is, subscription type plans, and they just when you don't make the bill. And the problem is with public, in the public sector is you're waiting at the check's mercy from, the Treasury Department or whoever to get it signed and out the door. And the last thing I want is not a check not to arrive, and they just shut us down. So yeah, I got that assurance today from them as well.
That's good. That's good. Okay. Any other questions or comments for Jay? Would it be helpful to Jade if we had a vote of support?
Yeah,
You go
definitely.
for the select board?
Definitely, just because I am, like I said, presenting it to them tomorrow, so that they know what I'm looking for on the ARPA funding. And obviously, talk about that, discuss it with all of you, and you understand what's going on.
Okay. Okay, I move that that the MTC support Jay in his proposal to towards Meraki switches for Meraki access points for our wireless access point infrastructure, and replace our existing access points with Meraki. Um, uh, yeah.
Second.
Okay. Joe, notes. Um, all right, so let's go around the room. Joe?
Aye.
Angela?
Aye.
Orla?
Aye.
And Yash?
Aye.
And likewise, aye. Great. Thank you. Thanks, Jay. Thanks for all your work on this.
Yep.
It'll be exciting to fill some of those dead zones.
Yes, definitely. It'd be very helpful.
I guess one last question I forgot to ask is, will this cover outdoors at the transfer station at all?
That was not the plan for the outside of the transfer station, just as discussions with DPW. It was mainly for the shop floor for updating devices whenever they have updates and patches on different pieces of equipment that need internet connection. Um, Again, the transfer station is definitely a distance away from the actual DPW station, and if anything is brought out to there, it would have to run back to the switch over at the DPW. So, you know, a lot of things would have to be looked at: power, length, how far is it from there to the transfer station. So,
Yeah.
if it's something that we definitely want to look into, as I said, DPW director was really keen on having to do something like that. But if it is something that comes up, we can definitely investigate it.
Okay. Out of curiosity, you may not know, do you know if we have conduit from the DPW building to the transfer station facility and or recycling area?
I'm not sure. I would probably say yes, only because a lot of the power is going back to the DPW station. That there is a lot of conduit that I've seen, even when I was doing recently when I was getting all of the internet into that building. We were looking at all the conduits, you know, where we can get it into the building. Um, but I'm not 100% sure that would be something that the director would probably know.
Okay. Yeah, just interesting. All right, thank you. Let's move on to technology-related town employee training. Orla and I had a chance of sitting down with Director Donovan, the library, and that was love to hear what your thoughts were, Orla, on that discussion. I know it's give any comments of like where we currently are and our next steps, and I'd be happy to fill in as well. I'd love to get your thoughts, Orla.
Yep. So it was a good opportunity, I would say, to just get a lay of the land understanding for what technology the library is leveraging, both in the context of, I guess, engagement with the patrons as well as just internally. Obviously, I would say internally in terms of sharing information, they heavily leverage Google Docs. And I would say that's probably the prime means. We also talked a little bit about just some of the learning opportunity from Ryan's perspective to get the staff more comfortable with tech. And Ryan shared with Matt and I some of the example spreadsheets that they've been using to work on so that we could have a look at those. So I think the next step was for us to kind of assess that and see, based on the information shared as well as the documents we now have access to, what would we advise in terms of training for the staff.
Yep, great. Yeah, that's great. I don't have anything else to add. That's great.
Was there any? I'm sorry, I wasn't able to attend that meeting. I did want to join. I'm sorry about that. But was there any like or actual training, or was there a discussion of where we're going as far as with the SharePoint site and what they're looking for as far as creation inside of there?
We didn't really get to those specifics because I think we need to look. We talked a little bit about how they're using Google Drive today, but part of the reason we asked him to then share those docs was so we could have a closer look and say, okay, how easy would it be to transition that to SharePoint? I think they definitely feel comfortable with Google Drive, and therefore I think that's part of the hesitancy probably in adopting a SharePoint. So I think it'll be good for us to have a look at those, because then we could easily explain and say, okay, here's how you would do this in SharePoint, as opposed to talking in theory. I think I got the sense that if we could bring it back to what they're doing, it'd probably be better received.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agreed. They have their ways of, certain ways of doing things. They use Google today, and they seem to be open, like Orla mentioned, to shifting technologies as long as it doesn't require significant shift in the way their ways of working, etc. And allows their, the same level of flexibility they currently have. But yeah, so yeah,
Do they do they share any of those Google Docs with other libraries, or is it like a, are they going back and forth with other locations as well, or is it just internal to them that they're using Google Docs?
I get the sense it was more internal.
Okay.
Did you get the same, Matt?
there is definitely an internal component, and they can of course share, of course, between personal email account or personal Gmail accounts. But there are also specifically two I think it's two Gmail accounts that are they're provided to them by is it Mars? Is it
Yeah, CW Mars, yeah.
CW Mars, and CW
Yeah.
Mars controls the domain, and CW Mars allocates these Google accounts and pays for these. I think it's a company. It's a small business or enterprise Google account where the CW Mars pays per seat. And for every participant in CW Mars, they give two Google accounts, and these are the only accounts that can be used for collaboration or sharing of some sort of docs um, with CW Mars or with other libraries. So it's collaboration across the library system. They use the CW Mars logins. We asked, could we pay CW Mars for additional accounts if we really wanted to? Not saying we want to, but and the answer is no. Like they're not built for that. So yeah, I think next steps is Orla and I need to sit down and review what they've shared with us and think about, what would it take to shift some of their at least the internal collaboration over to SharePoint / OneDrive, and how to, things you can collaboratively edit on your collaborative editing real time of your Excel docs rather than Google Sheets, the equivalent. So,
and I think that reminds me, that was a big part of the conversation too, was the fact that they are a CW Mars library, and therefore with that, there's a number of offerings that just come with being part of that suite that they take advantage of.
Yeah.
And I think makes it easier to obviously engage and collaborate more broadly.
Gotcha.
Okay, any questions or comments for Orla or myself? Okay, so yeah, the next actions there, Orla and I will continue exploring. Next, public safety. Yash, would you mind providing a summary of where we are with public safety discussion? And related to that, the dispatch discussion.
Okay, so we'll need to give it like an overview of what happened on the past entire month, I'll say. Beginning with the town meeting. And then Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm going like if I miss my facts here and there. So I think in the town meeting there was a discussion regarding the dispatch, or the public safety and the dispatch system that we have, or number of dispatchers that we have. There was a public petition that was brought in and was for discussion at that point, which kind of argued that we are not efficiently staffed at the for number of dispatchers so that we can cover up everything, and then the town should consider that there should be more dispatchers here. Another case, I think what Matt was there, and something that was raised was that can we, so this is with the discussion that is ongoing about should we be joining a regional dispatch center or RACC at this point, for combining with multiple other towns so that we have like a centralized place. But another citizen had brought in another request about like that we should have someone to walk in and kind of meet, to have a physical presence of a dispatcher or someone to attend to them whenever you walk into a public safety building, and so that that there is a sense of that requirement. And as well, there was a kind of an discussion that, yeah, people are feeling a bit more conscious as to, they know that there might not be a dispatcher and they might be holding up a line whenever they are calling in for an emergency, and that kind of feeling should not exist. And what can the town do so that you are effectively staffed there? So from this, there are two things that can come from there, that at least effectively give a budget to staff up, and also to explore an option of, like, if we don't want to join an RAC and we want to keep ourselves a, a physical presence in our own public safety departments, then can we do a solution of like multi-town virtual sharing of data, or kind of have a virtual dispatch mechanisms where we can add up to our capacity, even if we are not adding physical manpower. Okay, so that is something that fell onto the MTC, as to try and understand what kind of technology requirements might be there, or what could we be doing in aspect of like understanding if this kind of a dispatch service can be virtualized. If so, what are the requirements in terms of infrastructure on both the sides of, like, if we are collaborating or virtualizing with someone like a town one and our town, then what kind of requirements would be there. So to understand more about this, Matt, myself, and one more member, we from a different committee. I forget the representation there. Matt, could you help me?
He's John Butler. He was basically asked by the select board to look into this. Yeah.
Yeah. So we all did meet the police chief a few weeks back, and to understand what are the dispatch requirements and what is happening there. To our surprise, obviously, the police chief did show us what our department of the dispatch. We have 2 stations there. It was manned by 1 person at the time that we visited. It was a Friday morning. So there is also scope for expansion in our physical lobby there. We can add 2 more stations if you want to increase the staff. But in our discussions, we talked about multiple points in terms of for the dispatch. Like, if you are taking a decision on like a virtualization scenario, we wanted to understand what is essentially happening. So what we do understand is that if a dispatcher from our town is busy with a call and they are helping somebody, and at the same time there is another 911 call that gets routed to our side, because routing of 911 calls is geographical based at this point. So if you are in Southborough tower scenarios, it will get routed to us. If you just cross over to the Westborough side, even if you are a Southborough resident, does not mean that it will come to Southborough. It will go to that residence as per the requirement. So if we have a clashing of calls, and it doesn't wait, there is a threshold in time off, and it is handed off to a rollover service. For ours, it's Hopkinton. And after Hopkinton, if they are also caught up with another call, it goes to Milford. So this is the kind of rollover hops that happen at this point. So we understood that level of like that there is a, I'll not call it a backup, but a rollover that is available at this point. And we were trying to understand what kind of systems are being used, so that maybe in the future, if we want to think about any format of virtualization, or even trying to get our existing setup into a larger cloud-based thing, what the town really wants us to do, then what kind of opportunities are there, what kind of softwares are being used. So Central Square IMC, that's our software till now. So I'll talk a bit more about that, but is the problem clear till now, or other questions, or Matt, have I missed anything? So till now,
Yeah, nothing to add. Any questions about the problem statement for Yash? Okay.
So yeah, so coming to Central Square, I think we need to more at the end of the by the time it was the end of the meeting, I think one thing that we understood there was that it is not necessary that even though two towns who have a similar system, they might be able to share local data. Okay, meaning our system does keep a track of all the local incidents and history that has happened. So, for example, whenever there is a dispatch that happens, there is information regarding if that property or if that place has been attended before, if that person that we are going to attend to, was there any history of emergencies there in terms of medical history or any other scenarios that have been tracked before. So all this is our local history of the town or local records, I'll say, from the dispatch. Those are more or less for our side. Okay. They are not shared with another town. And we did not know at that time if such kind of an interface can exist, even if there is if this is the other town that we may want to collaborate with on some certain things, uh, would be using the same software or not. So that is one thing. We want to understand what kind of infrastructure exists and what infra requirements exist. But overall, the physical setup of the entire I'll say dispatch mechanism, it needs a particularly trained professional there. We cannot. It's not a call pick up and scenario. It needs a trained professional. I'm sure there are degrees of qualifications that go in there for getting there, because it's not. And so on the other side also, we need a similar kind of a person and this data. So one thought is to understand, what do we have any kind of this services that can be provided by Central Square going ahead, and if we can think of talking to anyone in terms of, hey, can we join like a virtual zone, which might not only be like, hey, we're trying to have more dispatch capacity added, but also kind of reduction in our response times and kind of more quality of service. One fact that Matt and I did ask the police chief there, which was a bit missing at that point, is that wasn't, we don't have data as a town about about how many calls do we get and how many calls get rolled over maybe to, let's say, a secondary or a tertiary zone. So that is one piece that we don't have any understanding at this point. So that will be an interesting data to get. So at this point, I am looking a bit more into Central Square and trying to identify if they have some good, I'll say, modules that can be used. And looking in Matt, I do find that there is a interesting solution now that is on their website also. I have requested like a white paper as well as a document sheet and use case scenario as that they have said. It is about what they call as CAD to CAD, or computer aided dispatch to computer aided dispatch. So CAD to CAD is a technology that Central Square enables multiple agencies to coordinate their response, coordinate their data, and that this is what I gather from their introductory and an upper level message. I don't have more details till the time I read all their documentation on that, and I have requested for it as a South Bureau member of the tech committee. So maybe I can read over that and then I can bring it to the MTC as a like a one pager or some sort as to how it can combine with our requirements. So that's where we are. And as a technology committee, I think that's one in our purview, as to understand that we have Central Square and they are going to provide cloud-based services. So that local data that we have, is it on-prem right now, or is it really on cloud? And if it is so, it will be, there are multiple things like, can we use our own active resources better, meaning our vehicles, our officers, all that geographic data, can that be, how well can we use the new tool that is available to us? And if there is any coordinating town around us, then can we share some of our data so we understand better when we respond? And even if this is not to be taken in the virtualization sense, it is more in the regards of how cloud level thing works. Yeah, I think Orla has a question.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, so thank you, Yash. So two questions. One, I guess, on the data you reference in terms of how many calls we have. Is that something that we know how to get our hands on? It's just a matter of going to do that, or that's not something that was collected and therefore there's no way of getting it.
At this point, we did not find any form of, I'll say, data gathering mechanism in place, but that is something that we need to explore. Because if I understand this correctly, this is the 911 system. It's more that is I forget the acronym that is being used for that. The PS, it's the state-based system. I don't know if it's a record that is kept at that level. So so whenever a 911 call gets dialed, it gets dispatched from the state level to a particular geo, and it carries some format of metadata of the caller and what it's coming from, and when it's transferred also, like a rollover from one side to the other, the same metadata carries forward to the other thing. But I am sure that there is a way in which we can get some form of statistics out of this. And I'm sure that the state is also keeping some form of statistics for their own, and like upgrades or data to upgrade the infrastructure that they have. But
You
we'll
would
have,
think so.
we'll have to talk to the police department a bit more about how we can get that at least.
Okay, got it. And then my second question was around just some of the questions that came up related to Central Square. Do we know of other towns that are using it that are ahead of us that we could just go ask them, I guess, how they solve for some of these things?
We do know that there are a few towns, like more or less of the towns will be using Central Square because the software IMC that used to be there, which is now Central Square owned, that is one of the most famous, or I'll say most used softwares for all your 911 as well as your dispatch management and RMS. So we surely have other towns, but we don't know what kind of modules they are using. So because it is a module based software, and we at this point, if I know well, have subscribed to literally 90 to 95% of their modules. So for management between our fire and police departments. So is the other, yeah. So part one of the question, yes. We can understand, or we may have a better understanding of like which towns are using it. Second, but what level of support they have from the software, we don't have an understanding of that.
And also, one thing, certainly add one to that topic, is one thing we don't know is how many people have moved from IMC to the latest gen Central Square cloud stuff. And also, we don't know, like the regional dispatch centers, which software they're using. Are they using Central Square, or are they using something else? So these are good questions we should be asking.
I wonder, yeah, if Central Square, because usually when we're doing vendor assessments, if you ask them for a comparable company, they'll give you some references. Wonder if that's something we can do here.
I mean, if we ask them for like their advanced tools and kind of the white paper, there is a contact us situation for them. And after I read through, maybe we can take as an MTC, maybe we can take a call with them, and we can involve the respective agency also into that, to understand and ask our questions to them. Perhaps they can provide us with more data or some references there. So I think this is a part of the next steps from our side as to the Central Square capabilities. Yeah.
Thank you.
Jay, is there anything that Yash may have missed in the term of describing IMC to your knowledge?
I mean, besides the fact that it is true, Central Square definitely has a bigger hold across the country when it comes to utilizing this type of technology. And IMC really does, especially in the Northeast, it's big here because it started here in the Northeast with IMC, and then Central Square bought out IMC, and now they're kind of merged together, and they're definitely trying to sway people to move to their cloud platform so that they can get more people onto that setup, which again makes sense because dealing with multiple states and communications back and forth, it would be easier to have some type of cloud solution so you can better communicate across the board. I'd say that that's definitely a limitation to our department and other departments across New England that are still utilizing IMC because they only go by this other application. Like it's they call it MERCS, but it's like initials for what the police department looks for, like warrants and stuff like that. They go onto that database, and that's kind of like a place where they can look for everything across the United States. CGIS is the name of the organization behind it, which is the justice system. But if they were able to merge this into a cloud system, they can better communicate across the board with other departments and make things a little bit easier. Everything that Yash is saying is pretty spot on. That's what's going on right now, and just trying to figure out what the option would be if it does become regional. Do they stick with Central Square, or do they just go to another platform that has to do with regional that I'm unfamiliar with, that none of us are familiar with because we've never really worked with a regional dispatch center before.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if not a regional dispatch center, and because there is a sense in the community that we would need, like, we don't want like a closed door system at this point, where we do want to walk in and kind of find a person there. When you walk into the public safety building, there is the dispatch person will surely help you out if there is a problem there. So that kind of access is something that the community, I feel, does not want to lose. So so we need to kind of preserve that, as well as come up with a better solution in terms of utilizing all the formats of technology. At least that's something that we can think of to aid our citizen at this point. So
yeah,
I mean, the example that the police chief, told us was that very easy is that the people use this as a center for for mediated meetings or something like multiple times. It is like custody handovers of like children during like visits and so then they need like a monitored place. So it is not necessary that the people who use that service there are residents. So it might be like two completely different town people might be using that as a mid-level facility for getting some adjudicated work going in.
Yeah, this has been a very contentious topic in town. So I am not for or against either or. I'm just here to support you guys.
Well stated, Jay. You should go into politics.
Stay neutral.
Yes. Okay, any other questions or comments for Yash on the public safety? Okay.
Matt, I don't know if you've already raised it, but I wanted to bring something that comes out of that software is also the GIS. I don't know if you have a plan to touch that.
Yeah, I had a thoughts a few minutes ago. I thought of it, then I forgot about it. So yeah, do you want to touch on that? Great.
Yeah. So something that comes out of this discussion is that IMC also, or that software also, ends up providing us with GIS tools and GIS-based mapping and scenarios, but that is required for the FDPD, the public safety scenarios. We also have GIS tools used in the assessors department for obviously for tax assessment purposes, and I think for the planning side also, right? And I'm sure DPW is using it, no doubt.
Yeah, those are the three: assessors, planning, and DPW. I think the three different GIS systems. Well, and then public safety.
So one of the questions that is that how many of these are actually on how many are already on cloud solutions, and how many are and are all three of these uniquely different solutions and different companies. And it can be, for a lack of a good word, go to a one GIS thought process in
So
cloud as a
I
term.
I will just have a couple things to say to that. First, our GIS system that we currently have that residents can use, that are pertain to, to the buildings department, zoning, and conservation, and also assessors, is first of all, it's the same GIS company. It's the one GIS company. You can see on the town website under town maps, there's a location there where you can go to see the GIS system that's in place. It's called CAI Technologies. They're the company that put it in place. So that's one. There is a Esri account. It's a little different. It's not particularly GIS. It's GIS, but it's called Esri, where it gives you more layers that pertain to like a little bit more of a deeper understanding of conservation and layers that have to do with DPW when it comes to drinking. So yes, there is another product that they use for that, but they're two different beasts in a sense. They do two different types of things. And whatever is being utilized from the public safety standpoint really ties into 911 and location and geolocation. If someone calls, like they literally get a pinpoint map on their GIS system telling them where that person is. It's not something that anybody else in town utilizes or touches or even goes near. It kind of really, and again, this is something I'll clarify a little bit more with the chiefs. But it's definitely more tied directly to what they're doing and when a call comes through and where they need to go and their address and even if a person's in a car, it actually pinpoints where their location is so they can see on the map and try to get someone to that general location of where that cell signal came from. So that like they're definitely not something that can be tangled together in a sense. They're very separate type beasts, if I would say, that do three different types of GIS type technology in a sense. So tying them together is not something that option, I would say. In some cases, they have to be separated in how they're used.
Agreed. So if I want to summarize this, then it will be that the public safety based GIS that the PDN use is a different one compared to what other departments like DPW and assessors are using. But the ones which are non-public safety is actually provided by a single provider at this point, and we are all unified on that. Perfect.
So just so I understand, what does planning use? Do they use Access?
The CAI Technologies is the GIS one that they use. If you're, I think you were going to say Assessor Pro maybe, but that's a different type of, again, a totally different type of beast in itself as well. It's literally what it means, assessor. It has to do with the assessing of properties and keeping a database of what that property cost throughout the years and giving what that it actually does calculations on how to assess properties as well and collects data from other databases that have to do with what prices were of houses in that area. So again, another beast altogether that does its own thing. If that's what you were about to say too, I thought I heard you saying Assessor Pro, but that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, so Assessor Pro or Assess Pro has its own GIS. Is that correct?
Yeah, in a sense, it's its own GIS because it shows the maps of the locations of the housing, but it's not. It ties into Google Maps. It literally communicates to Google Maps and the outside.
Google Maps. Yeah, that's not. Yeah, it's not a GIS system.
Yeah, just a picture of the area so that someone can, and assessors can see the location of the house.
And planning, zoning, and conservation use this Access GIS. Is that what this is? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's that right there, and it's powered by CAI Technologies.
Oh, CAI Access GIS. Okay,
Yep.
So CAI, and planning uses the same thing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then DPW uses Esri. Is that right?
Yeah, Esri and also conservation will use Esri as well. Again, Esri really has to do with the layers of the locations, um,
Okay.
with piping or actual land itself, what's there, stuff like that.
Okay. One thing I noticed that I think open question is for future views, given that we're exploring um, what the start of the art of what is possible, especially if we're considering moving towards cloud-based or considering moving cloud-based Central Square. I noticed that Central Square, um, Esri has a partnership with Central Square.
Makes sense. Yep.
So it might be just another layer and where Central Square, its cloud talks to Esri or something like that.
Yep.
So um, so there is potentially a possibility of, at least in the future, of unifying on Esri at least, well, for at least for conservation, DPW, and public safety. Um,
Yep.
but maybe Temple Square has other partnerships as well. I don't know.
Yeah,
Something to look into.
I think it really just ties into the actual software itself and where it's getting the information for, like I said, for like when a 911 call comes in, right? It's using, that technology in the background to pinpoint locations and stuff like that. So I'm not sure. What I'm trying to say is I don't think like you could buy a license for public safety and that same license could be used by someone over at conservation. I don't think it would be like the same type of product, is what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah. I'm just looking for possibility for unified databases as opposed to separate, discrete, independent. For example, I can see there being a benefit to sharing between um, planning and building and zoning and public safety in terms of like how many stories is the building
Yeah.
as of last week, or
Yeah.
is there open a building permit, or is it under construction right now, that property?
Or even fire hydrants locations and stuff like that, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
they're exactly where they are as well. So yeah, absolutely. It could be
yeah.
a
So yeah, I think that would be something good, Yesh, to investigate and discuss. Um, and especially, I think you basically start investigating what integrations exist with Central Square. Supposedly Esri has integrations. Does CAI Axis also have like those types of integrations?
Yeah.
And then we can, um, for the MPC delegates to those other respective committees, um, we can start having that discussion to see if it makes sense to unify the databases or have, and just, of course, multiple layers of information with proper access control, etc. But just have a unified GIS sometime in the future. That's one of those dreams right alongside unified web. It's not going to happen anytime soon, but it'd be nice to have it as a dream. Okay, anything else on that topic or public safety tech from anyone? Okay, let's move on. Synergies School IT, schools non-attendance. Any other departments that people were able to do outreach on that we need to report on this evening? Let me pull up assignments. Okay, you have a comment, Joe?
Yeah. Now that we're past like town meeting and tax day, I think there was the new assignments, and I didn't have a contact for new assignment was if you'd sent out an update on the contacts, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah. In fact,
I believe Mr. Stivers had pointed out some areas we should expand into, and I pulled conservation.
yes, that's right. So here's updated assignments. So recently, you have conservation. Do we have planning award on here?
Yeah, that's right above conversation.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
you'd
blind.
added
Thank you.
you'd added finance, planning, and conservation in that meeting.
Okay. Are there any other keyboards, committees that we should have delegates to? Actually, there's a question for one of our attendees, Mr. Sivers. Let me allow you to talk. There's a question to you. There's any other board or committee we're missing here that we should have on our radar?
Yeah, Matt, I'd added the other three there, 3 or 4 when I went through the list of committees. And there are a variety of other committees out there, but I think this is now a pretty good whack at where the money flows, as a matter of fact. So I think that again, this is a pretty aggressive list. If you folks actually can support all of these guys, we're hugely ahead of where we have been in the past. So
Yeah.
I could suggest some contacts here if you're interested.
Yeah, we would be, especially if the one where they're missing.
The bottom treasurer, Brian Ballantyne, is the treasurer, and he's a good place to connect. And obviously Jay is connected to all these folks. The
Sure.
planning board, town planner is Karina Quinn, and Mimi Luttrell, M-E-M-E Luttrell, is the planning board chair, and she'd be a good one. Luttrell is the planning board chair. She'd be a good one to connect with. Conservation, Melissa Danza is the conservation agent, and she is really on top of DNZA. She's on top of that. And the chair of the Planning or the Conservation Commission is Mark Possemato, Possemato. But Melissa basically is the motive power behind all the administrative stuff on Conservation Commission. So she'd be a good place to start, and she could connect with Mark and others there. So that
Great.
would get you into the woodwork there, and let it then follow with individual committee members as necessary.
Just add cases no longer with the town, so you can remove that until we get a new building commissioner.
Excuse me? Couldn't hear you, Jay.
Yeah,
I was just
you're
case is no longer with the town, so
Oh, right. Yeah, good.
the building commissioner, you have to remove that for.
Yeah. We've advertised the position, and TBD at this point.
Yep.
Thanks. Yeah, Jay, you might consider tuning down some of the noise suppression settings in Zoom or something like that.
Yeah. I have a really loud dog in my background sometimes, so I'm like, that might be bad.
Yeah, we haven't heard any dog, but it's definitely attenuating the sound. But okay, thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay. All right, let me jump back to our minutes. Reviewed so any other, doesn't sound like there's any other updates from the other outreach. Is that accurate? Okay. 2024 town survey results, and we discussed it briefly in our last call. I've shared um, shared the results of the MBTA communities with the planning board. That, of course, that article was shifted, and I guess there's going to be currently targeting a town meeting in the fall to discuss that, but we'll continue working with them. I'll continue working with them to, of course, give them the results. I shared all the results publicly with all the graphs, etc., with my Southborough, and they posted them, the results from this year's survey. And I will be sharing those same results with the respective departments and slash committees that are affected, that we have information on. And as part of that, I also share the individual open text, free text responses. So DPW section, I'll share free text responses to DPW, etc. There's somebody who actually volunteered, somebody who's already on the Economic Development Committee who is a data engineer who volunteered to assist with some analysis and do trending across years, basically help with trending across years. So I've given him access to results and be working with him over time to hopefully start trending across years of all of our statistics. Yeah, so the next steps on town survey results is Matt to share individual groups of results with respective departments, committees, including free text feedback. And I'm also going to offer at the same time, if these any department or these committees have interest in doing surveys, I'd be happy to volunteer to help them with their respective surveys using our SurveyMonkey account, which is pretty nice. It supports branching logic. So this is the first year we're able to do allow citizens to skip sections. So it doesn't force them all the way through. So with this now top year level of SurveyMonkey, people could select up front which sections they want to skip, so they didn't have to answer the entire survey if they didn't want to. So that was nice. Any questions on the town survey results? Okay. I think we've covered tech takeaways from town meeting. I think we've covered that. Congrats, Jay, to moving forward the budget. I think this is the first year I've heard that nobody asked any questions on it, so it's a great thing. Bravo.
Very stressful.
Yeah.
Matt, were there any comments on any of our materials or the presentation that you gave or anything, any notes for changes we want to make next time?
No comments. There weren't any questions. Yeah.
Okay, and you have all the extra
I
documentation.
have all the extra flyers. Yes, I need to get those to you. Yeah. Thanks again, Angela, for just call out Angela. Kudos to Angela for putting together the presentation as well as the flyers, the cell phone flyer, etc. And that was seemed to be quite successful. So yeah, and I have all the extras, so I'll get those back to you.
The non-necessary note would be that next time we should really update our pictures on the fly.
Yeah, just send me any updated photos and we can put those on there.
Yeah, we talked about emergency dispatch tech in the earlier section of the meeting, so we won't cover that. SAM and Cable Committee. So this is not an official MTC because, from my understanding, SAM, South Florida Access Media, does not fall under town purview or the select board, et cetera. It's its own entity. But the SAM is funded by a tax that is collected from the cable providers in town, and our contract, South Florida's contract with Verizon, my understanding, is coming up for renewal. And very commonly, we ask these large cable slash connectivity providers for concessions and slash funding of some needs. And so I had the opportunity to meet with Terry Underwood from South Florida Access Media, and she gave me a tour of their offices and their setup in the townhouse, and starting to explore, basically, she's put together a proposal for incremental updates, like moving from standard def to high def, and a few things that she'd be interested in going with. But I'm interested in adding and recommending she add to the proposal some additional things to update meeting room tech. So next up here is Jay. I want to find some time with you to discuss some of my findings and discuss meeting room tech in general.
So just an FYI, I'm in the process of looking into updating the hearing room with some new tech to kind of similar to what we were doing over at public safety, but to integrate what they currently have in there to make that happen. So I'm in the process right now of actually talking to a vendor, same vendor that did the public safety stuff, trying to work with them so that we can try to get something so that we're able to do meetings when we want to and not be at the mercy of South Florida Access Media all the time. So that's the plan right now. That's what we're looking at.
Okay. Yeah, this is a great time to chat then. I'll
Yeah.
find time to discuss because especially if we can get the cable companies to fund some of this tech, yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
And also be nice to have unified, standardized technology across different rooms as well, across the, so that when people go in and meet in public safety versus the townhouse versus, I don't know, senior center, it's a similar tech setup and it's auto magic, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's definitely discuss.
Okay.
All right, that's all I have. Is there anything else that I missed on the agenda for tonight before we, yes, Sam Stivers.
Hey, Matt, thanks. Just a quick heads up. I have suggested something that I hope you guys get contacted by, but I've not done this formally yet, and so I'm still working on it. But we are talking about a special town meeting in October, September timeframe to follow up on a number of things, including the MBTA communities zoning overlay. And we're getting a lot of feedback from people. We've proposed a Saturday meeting again, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from people saying, let's do it on a weeknight. I'm sorry, we've proposed weeknight, and people are now saying, let's do it Saturday. And we've tried both, and each way we get a lot of criticism. So there is no simple answer. And so what I have suggested is that we ask you folks to help us with your survey tool to do a survey on what do people want in terms of weeknight or Saturday, and use that data to drive the decision. And it is too easy to listen to the loudest voice on this kind of stuff. And so I think it would be very helpful if we can figure out more, data-driven what people want, and then we'll go in that direction. So I hope that I get agreement from my colleagues to follow that path, but just wanted to give you a heads up that I've suggested that and see if there's any reason why you think that is not a useful approach.
That sounds wonderful to me.
Okay.
We'd love to support.
Would like a small poll survey on the website itself.
Yeah, very, very simple one. And in either case, the big issue is things like daycare, for example. How do you deal with people with children, et cetera? And we had an impassioned plea at our last meeting to do it on Saturday, not weeknights. But we had, in prior years, we've had the same impassioned plea from parents with kids in athletic programs on Saturdays to not do it on Saturdays. So there is no simple solution. But if we actually get a reasonably definitive result out of a survey, then that lets us at least deal with the most popular option, and we can figure out daycare and other kind of things as a function of that. So again, I hope we can make that happen, but you want to let you know and see if there was any significant technical or other reason that we shouldn't pursue that. So it sounds like I'll keep going with that suggestion. So
yeah, definitely no reason why we couldn't support. That's
crazy
I love it.
Data to make these decisions, but
data-driven decision making as opposed to the squeaky wheel. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. And yeah, and please do keep us in mind in any other decisions that are significant that might be controversial. Let's try to go towards the data. I mean,
the regional dispatch is another very interesting one, as a matter of fact. I was very interested in your earlier survey on regional dispatch, where, again, we've heard a very small number of very loud voices saying regional approach is terrible for a variety of reasons. But in fact, the survey showed that there was a very substantial split on that one, and a sizable portion of the world actually was open to regional. So I found that very interesting. And again, you know, a lot of people just don't bother to show up at town meeting or select board meetings or whatever. And it's useful to get a much broader input. And I think these surveys are very helpful. So many thanks to you guys for helping support that. So thanks.
Yeah, happy to. Okay, let's go ahead and schedule our next meeting. We could pull up the calendars for our May meeting. And I'm wondering if we could, at least for our May meeting, do another, either on Monday or a Wednesday. Some people could look at either the 20th or 22nd of May. Does that week work for people?
Either is fine for me.
Yeah, 20th or 21st, anything.
Yeah.
You can do the 20th, but not the 22nd.
Okay, 20th. Jay, how's the 20th look for you? You're on mute, but it's good. Looks
It's
like you're
not my
nodding.
head.
It's good.
Awesome.
Good. That looks good.
Okay, awesome.
Could we
Yeah.
think like 7 p.m. instead of 6:30? It's kind of a edge time from work to
Yeah, what time, Yash, are you proposing? Sorry,
6:45 or 7.
7. Yeah, what do people think about 7 or 6:45?
Either is fine.
Angela, I
7's
think
good.
you're mute. Angela, for some reason.
So let's do 7 since it's a round number. And
Okay.
that helps. Okay.
Okay. Like we did tonight, we'll try to keep it to an hour and a half. Awesome. Okay. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Orla, second. Let's go around the room. Angela,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Orla,
Aye.
Yash. I don't think I heard that. Yash, is that a yes?
Aye.
Okay, and likewise I. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your month.
Thank
you.
you.
See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.